Does anyone out there have a weed whacker? So this is an educational video in which I will impart to you decades worth of experience and wisdom in the care and maintenance of hair. I've learned a lot of things from personal trial and error, and I've researched things on YouTube about cutting mustaches and mohawks and that sort of thing. So I'm going to take what I've learned and put it out there in case anyone happens to find it useful. I'm going to start small. Let's just say when it comes to hair growing out of things, I am way ahead of my time. Yeah, even way back when I was in my late 20s, possibly very early 30s, I went to this hairdresser to get my hair cut, and she says to me, "You have the eyebrows of a 60-year-old man." And I was like, "Yep." So, here's how I'm going to cut eyebrows. Got my scissors. I'm going to be pushing the eyebrows up and trimming along the top of my finger and pushing them down, kind of doing the same thing, catching all the stray hairs that are hanging down here. If I don't cut my eyebrows and let them grow out, on a windy day they'll actually blow into my eyes. Some of the hairs anyways get that long, and it's quite annoying, so I got to keep them nice and trim. Let's make them a little damp. Who was it that once said that the eyebrows are the mustaches of the face? It must have been me, because that actually makes negative sense. I've also alarmed a couple of hairdressers at how red my skin turns just by rubbing it. It's just the sensitive pale skin that I happen to have. A quick note on my scissors here. I do very occasionally cut a bit of hair on the side. I don't really get a lot of repeat business, but over the years I think I've gotten pretty good at cutting my own hair as well as my wife's and my kids' hair. And in order to do a good job of cutting hair, you need a really good quality pair of scissors. I had tried to purchase a $100 pair of scissors from a hairdresser supply shop, and they ended up getting dull super fast. So I did a ton of research, and what I found out that was when it comes to scissors, I guess just like knives and other blades, there's no quality like Japanese steel. So all the recommended hair cutting scissors were Japanese made. The problem is the professional ones could run into thousands of dollars for a single pair of scissors, which is pretty wild to me. I ended up spending, I think it was $300 or $400 on a pair of scissors and thinning shears. And with the number of haircuts I've given to myself and my family over the years, I think I've more than made up the cost of the good quality scissors. I'm not exactly sure what brand. All I know is that the scissors themselves say TRE-60 and 440C, which I think is the quality of the steel. The thinning shears say TRE-30T with the 440C on them as well. But these are great scissors. They're very sharp and they keep their edge. In fact, I have a couple of scars on the fingers of my left hand from times when I've just kind of rubbed the scissors against them while I was cutting hair. And that's all it really takes. They're almost razor sharp, but that's pretty important to cutting hair well. So next up, we're gonna have a go at the mustache here. I really hate everything about having a mustache except how it looks, which I guess is true with hair in general. If I wasn't a vain person, I'd just grow in the full beard, take the clippers, put like a number 2 clipper guard on them, buzz the whole head and beard the same length, then I wouldn't really have to shave, wouldn't have any hair maintenance. But, you know, when you're a 40-something-year-old with a dad bod, you gotta do what you can. Anyhow, back to the mustache. I hate having hair tickling under my nose, so I'm gonna get the top of it with these little Conair beard and mustache trimmers, sort of go along the top of it to keep it from getting up too high. And I'm also going to take the scissors, because I hate having the hair on my lip as well, and I'll get to that in a second. Let's do the top first. Alright, now for the rest of the mustache. I really hate having it go onto my lip as well. I certainly don't like having food or drink on it when I'm trying to eat. So the only part I actually grow long are the ends that I curl up. So the rest of it, what I'm actually going to do is take my little wee mustache comb it all down, and I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to trim right along the top of the lip here. And I'm going to just leave it longer right at the corners of my mouth. In the past, I've actually cut it too far in this way, so I'm trying to grow it out a bit longer on the edges again. But that's the general plan. I've seen other YouTube tutorials where they say to be careful not to cut up too high, because when you shower and dry off, it'll kind of come up even higher. But I don't mind. I'd rather err on the side of having it too high than having it down on my lip. So let's do that. Alright, it already feels so much better to have that lip clear. Alright, next up I'm going to tackle the head. Just like with my hair cutting scissors, I did a whole bunch of research on good clippers, and I ended up getting some Oster brand clippers and edge trimmers. I'm not exactly sure what brand they are, other than they say model 23-22F on the clippers. So I'm basically just going to take the clippers with no guard on them at their very lowest setting and go over the sides and back of my hair. It's super tricky to get a nice straight mohawk. And in the past what I've done as I've attempted to get it straight is I've come in thinner and thinner and I've had to try to grow it out to the sides a bit more again. But it's just a matter of being slow and deliberate. Now here's the tricky bit, and this is where a handheld mirror is essential. So I actually forgot to start recording when I was doing the back of it. I have no idea how this is going to look on camera, but okay, now here's the really tricky bit, because I have to hold the clippers with my left hand, operate them with my left hand while looking backwards in the mirror. It really takes some getting used to, but again, if you do it slowly and carefully, eventually it's not so bad. I don't know, I think that's all right. And now for the real art of the cut. I need to blend this longer hair of the beard right down to nothing here. So what I'm going to do is start with a number 3 on the clippers. As you can see, I painted the numbers on my clipper guards because it was really hard to see them when they were just the raised black numbers. But I'm going to pop that on the clippers and start with that on the sides of the beard. As I'm doing this, I'm actually raising the bottom end of it to help with the blend as well. Alright, next up we go to a number 2. And this bit, we're just kind of starting a little further up. I'll go to a 1 and then a 0 and a half and so on to blend it right up. Number 1. Alright, next I'm going with a 0. Now for the finishing touches of the blending, what I'm going to do is no guards on the clippers. I'm going to start the clipper setting about 2/3 of the way up there. And then I'm going to do a couple passes of about 1/3 and then all the way back down to 0 again for the final pass. So let's put it about 2/3. And there we go. I think I have a pretty smooth blend for this section. I still have to blend it into here, but I think it's a nice gradual blend for there. So next up I'm going back to my scissors to get the length I want of this part here, and then using scissor over comb to sort of blend it down to the number 3 section here. So back to the scissors. And what I also like to try to do is keep it shorter at the back and sort of taper it to a longer front here. And before I forget, I also like to get this bit really short too. So back to the little beard and mustache clippers. Sorry if you can't see half of what's going on here. This is kind of a complicated process of using cameras and mirrors and everything else. But now, and you gotta get rid of this stuff right in here on the sides. So, clippers and comb. I got this great little comb for using clippers with. Okay, I think that's more or less got things blended in. Just going to take the clippers and go around the edge and then do a proper shave after it's all cleaned up. Okay, that concludes the portion of the hair cutting that I'm going to show on camera. To see the rest, you need to become a Patreon subscriber. Ew, gross. Just kidding. Alright, I've had a shower and I've gotten cleaned up a bit. The reason I don't cut my hair quite as often as I probably should is because I hate the cleanup process. The hair seems to get everywhere. I don't put my scissors away usually for a day or two after I cut, just to catch any stray hairs that might end up popping out after the fact. But now I'm going to shave and finish up this cutting process.
Using science. MDMA can be a lot of fun, and it might even help people during a therapy session. But now, sun is up, the sky is water. But how can that happen? Well, to understand that, you need to know the way the situation works. And once you start holding too much water in your body, get this.
All right. I'm happy with the actual length of the mohawk right now. I'm not going to do any cutting off the length. That's the one thing I've been completely unable to figure out how to do on my own, is getting the scissors back to cut the very back of this. So I'll typically do the top of it myself and then get my wife to do the back portion. It's way too awkward to try to get back there with scissors on my own. All right, so that's it for the hair cutting portion of this video. All right, let's talk about styling now, and we'll start with the mustache. The primary product I like to use is called Clubman Mustache Wax. It comes with a tube of wax and the little comb that I was using earlier. And it's just the one that I like to use the most, just by trial and error of various products. It's a soft moldable wax, unlike, I guess, real wax that you have to heat up because it's a solid block. So you would have to heat it up and then apply it, and then when it dries it stiffens. But this stuff here is more like a paste that I can work into it much more easily without the heating process. So it's two simple steps I use for the mustache. First, I get the wax in there, and then I take a bit of hairspray, spray it on my fingers, and put it into there just to get that solid hold once the wax has it in the right shape. So let's get started with that. Oh, my battery's almost dead. Okay, the first thing I want to do with my old tube of Clubman wax is get the dried stuff off of the top of it. And then I'm going to put some onto the comb, just kind of spread it thinly and evenly on the comb part, and then start by combing it through the mustache. Same with the other side of the comb. For a while I tried using a Clubman wax that was a brown color, but it looks kind of like really fake monochromatic brown when it was in. So I'm using the white stuff and just trying to avoid getting clumps of white in my mustache. Okay, once it's been combed through, I put some on my fingers. And I'm going to start on one end of the mustache and roll it in very gently. I'm not going to squeeze hard as I'm twisting the mustache, because then I find it sort of ends up just drooping into its own weird shapes. So I'm very gently, after I spread it evenly over my fingers so there's no clumps, I'm going to get right into the base of that longer part, and I'm going to roll that through to get a general shape to begin with. So I want the basic shape in there to start. Okay, that's good for one side. Get the other hand, work it onto my fingers, and then roll it in gently. Try to get the shape in. I'm not going to get too concerned about the shape right away. But once we have the general shape, now I'm finished with the wax. I'm going to take my Got to Be Glued hairspray, which has a bunch of my old brown wax all over the bottle, but hopefully it's not solidified. Good. I'm just spraying some onto my fingertips, spreading it around, and then twisting it through the mustache to get that nice hold firmly in the shape. Again, I'm not worrying about the final shape, I'm just worried about getting the product in there. And it's not till after it's had 5 or 10 minutes to start drying out that I get the final shape twisted into there. So again, spraying onto the fingers of my other hand, spreading it around, and gently twisting it into the mustache to work it in. Okay, let's see, this one's drooping already. You don't want to overwork things ever if you can help it, because that leads to droopage, in my experience. All right, so we'll get the final shape in a minute, but in the meantime, I'll do the hair. So the hair has to be almost completely dried out. I'm gonna wash the hairspray off my hands. All right, and now, just like with the mustache, this is gonna be a 2-product process. It's pretty much all dried out. So the one product I've found is the best that I've used for years is Alberto Extreme Style Texture Rework Putty. That's the best stuff I've found to get the general shape in. It's a very kind of non-hard putty. And again, just like with the wax, I want to work it evenly over my finger so it doesn't clump up. And then starting at kind of the back, I want to get it right into the root of my hair. So pushing the hair backwards and up, gradually working my way from back to front, getting right there in the roots. You don't want a lot of product at the tips necessarily. It has to be at the bottom to hold the hair up. If you go too heavy with the product, what's going to happen is it's actually going to weigh the hair down. It's not going to stay up. And just like with the mustache, the last thing you want to do is overwork it, because it'll just droop right down and we'll never get back up again. So I'm getting the shape of the front in here. And okay, then I'm going to do the same for the back. So starting at the top, I'm going to work it in from the roots of the hair. I'm going to work my way down to the bottom, applying more product over my fingers until I get all the way to the base. And then I'm going to shape it up, not overworking it, doing as little as possible to get the shape in there. And then I have to get my handheld mirror to have a quick look at the back and get any sort of misshapen stuff straightened out. Again, working it as little as possible. So now the shape is in there. To hold it, I'm going to take my got-to-be glued hairspray again and give it a spray on both sides. Trying to avoid spraying my camera. All right, and then just a final push up. All right, and that's going to hold it. It's going to dry nicely. It's going to have a nice shape to it, and it's going to stay relatively in place once that hairspray is dried in there. So going back to this droopy mustache now, the hairspray's had a few minutes to dry, so I'll start to work the shape a little bit. In a few more minutes, once it's dried a little more, I'll get the final shape in there. It's kind of long and droopy at the moment, so I'm also going to cut some length off of this. All right, getting the base in there is the key. I'm not sure how well this is going to work out. I'll just wash the product off of my hands. I'm going to use my scissors to trim the mustache. So, back to my hair cutting scissors. And just try to get both sides relatively evenly. So I always seem to end up doing the thing where I trim one end, go to the other, think, oops, I went too far on the other side, go back to the other side to even it up and go, oops, went too long, too much on that side too. I have to be a little conscious of that. Alrighty. It's going to take a few more minutes for that hairspray to get a little more dry so it will hold the shape. Is that relatively even? What do you think? I think it's pretty good length there for now. Hopefully once the other hair grows in more out to this side, it'll hold better too. Might have to take a bit off the first side again. That's exactly what I said would happen. Better not touch it. Okay. So there you go. It's taken a few hours to go from virtually a caveman to a guy who's way too old to be sporting a pink mohawk. And I think I angled it in a little too much right up top here. But other than that, I think it all looks pretty decent. Didn't cost me anything other than the cost of the equipment. And I'm pretty much good to go now. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you happen to know a hairy person who would enjoy this video, please pass on the link to them. Cheers. I've learned a lot of things from personal experience, and I've researched things on Is the camera focusing on the back of my head? I hope not. What do you call it?